Hi everyone, thank you for joining our educational webinar today. I'm very pleased to have Sasha Carey with me today to present to you how healthy is the new wealthy. As always, before we begin, I will need to run through a few housekeeping items. So as always, this webinar is being recorded. In the days after this is finished, we'll be sending you out an email which contains the video and slides for this presentation, so you can watch in your own time. We would love for you to be engaged, so if you see on the taskbar to your right, there's a questions panel. If you've got any questions, please ask, and we'll get to them at the very end, and we'll see if Sasha can get through as many as we can. If you'd like to join the conversation on social, please use the hashtag NetwealthInvest or tweet us at NetwealthInvest, and we'd be delighted for you to share that online. And there is CPD points allocated to this presentation, which there'll be a link sent out in the email, which I previously mentioned as well. So our presenter today, Sasha Carey, is a vitality coach at AIA Vitality Australia. She has more than 20 years experience as a sales professional, marketing manager and consultant in the healthcare industry. And over the past 10 years, she has specialized in the treatment of cardiovascular disease and diabetes, and knows all too well the implications diseases such as these can have on society. Working as a sales coach, a qualified personal trainer, specializing in nutrition, and as an advisor to healthcare professionals, Sasha has experienced firsthand how healthy choices can positively impact health and well-being. That's why she's here today to share with you. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Sasha.
Thanks, Liam. Hi, everyone out there. Thank you for taking the time to tune in today. And thank you also to Netwealth for the opportunity to speak to you all today. So let's get started, shall we? Have a chat about why healthy is definitely the new wealthy. Okay, so first off, let's start off by taking a wide-angle view. We'll zoom out on Google Maps, so to speak, and take a look at what's happening in our nation at the moment. Now, we all know the majority of Australians insure their car before their lives, and this lack of understanding about life insurance amongst Australian consumers makes insurance adequacy in Australia a really real challenge. Take a look at these numbers. And I'm wondering out there if anyone's surprised by this. So less than 20% of Australians possess a good understanding of disability or death insurance. 81% of Australians say they have insurance for their car, yet only 31% have insurance to protect their income. Now, for those who only have cover in superannuation, only 30% of Australians are aware that they even have this cover, which is pretty staggering. With an insurance coverage gap in Australia of $1.8 billion, the many Australians who do have coverage don't even have the right insurance to meet their lifestyle needs. Now, when you consider our lifestyle choices, this underinsurance gap is even more alarming. So I'm sure some of these numbers some of you may have seen before. Currently in Australia, we have 1 in 3 people who are overweight and 1 in 4 who are the next level at obese. We have 1 in 5 people with raised blood pressure, 1 in 5 people are still smoking, and per capita, we consume 12.2 litres of pure alcohol. Now, I'm sure this is something you see on a regular basis. I mean, how many of you see clean skins these days? So this is a real concern for society at large, as well as obviously the individual. Now I've got a couple more staggering numbers for you in relation to the choices we're making about our lifestyles. Now, a recent study conducted by the World Health Organization highlighted some pretty alarming factors. So take a look at the side here. You'll see 4 main risk factors, and that is physical inactivity, an unhealthy diet, smoking and excess alcohol, leads to 4 non-communicable diseases. So this is respiratory disease, so we're talking about lung disease, etc. there, diabetes type 2, cancer and cardiovascular disease, so we're looking at heart disease and stroke. Now, these 4 diseases are responsible for 63% of deaths worldwide. Even more concerning than that, in Australia, that number is as high as 90%. These behaviours also have a really direct impact to us as an insurer, AIA, and other insurers out there, I'm sure, and for yourselves as advisors seeing claims come through. We see impacts playing every day in our claims in cancer, heart disease, musculoskeletal and mental health. So when we talk about first world problems, I don't think we can get any bigger than this, really. So let's zoom in a little and make it more personal. What do these numbers mean for our workplace? Okay, some big numbers up here. So we know that per year, absenteeism, which is basically not turning up to work, costs Australia $7 billion. Presenteeism costs Australia every year $35 billion. Now, don't be too concerned if you don't at first know what presenteeism is. It's good, I get to teach you a new word today. Presenteeism is basically when someone turns up to work but is not actually working. So someone might come to work sick with the cold or flu or just feeling under the weather and really not getting much done that day, but obviously getting paid for it. There's also instances of people coming to work with being unwell mentally as well. So both of these effects, but particularly if they're occurring on a long-term basis, can obviously have an effect on everyone within the workplace and can actually be quite negative and damaging to workplace morale. So that presenteeism is a real issue. If a workplace does not have a health and wellbeing initiative in place, they're actually 4 times more likely to lose talented staff within the next year, which is pretty staggering when you consider the cost that it takes to actually replace a staff member, whether they are talented or not. 4 times more likely is a number that I think we all really need to be across. And I think this goes without saying, unhealthy workers are 9 times more likely to take sick days than healthy workers. So for every dollar invested in workplace health and wellbeing programs, there has been shown to be a return of investment between $3 and $6.50. So those, even though the $3 and $6.50 is quite low, for every dollar that you invest, there is actually quite a good return. So we've seen some pretty overwhelming numbers now. Let's have a look at what happens if we take a positive spin. So what if we turn this around? What happens when a workplace implements a health and wellbeing strategy? And I've seen this time and time again. The great news is healthy workers are 3 times more productive than unhealthy workers and are at less risk of diseases like heart disease, type 2 diabetes and cancer. You may remember some of those diseases I talked about on a couple of slides back. So implementing a health and wellbeing strategy can have a significant effect, obviously not only on staff, but if you see there, 97% of top performing Australian organisations have implemented a health and wellbeing initiative. It also has a real impact on your bottom line. So if we look at it in a nutshell, healthy workers, you're more likely to see take fewer sick days. They tend to be more productive. They have a higher energy level and motivation. They're more alert at work. They're able to get jobs done at a more timely rate. They have a greater job satisfaction and they have what we all strive to have, a greater work-life balance. For the organisations, there's an increased rate of productivity, a reduction in staff turnover, reduction in sick leave, and also a reduction in workers' compensation claims, which can be really damaging on a workplace if that adds up. Now, when I first start working with businesses, when I first walk in and we have those initial discussions around what it takes to implement a health and wellbeing program, I'm often told the prospect of such seems really overwhelming. And I understand that. Where do you even start when talking about putting a health and wellbeing program in place into a workplace? The good news is actually a lot easier than you think, particularly if you can break it down into these 3 steps. So I always suggest that you absolutely plan and talk. Number one, get management support. There really is no point in moving forward with a health and wellbeing initiative if you haven't got the key decision makers behind it. Not saying all of a sudden they have to go from being couch potatoes to ultra marathon runners, but they need to be supportive of the idea that you're taking an interest in your staff's health and wellbeing. Do yourself a favour and identify a coordinator or champion, if you like. You can usually spot these. There's generally always at least one person that's pretty passionate about health and wellbeing. They're usually the ones with the gym bag sitting under the desk that are going to shoot off to the gym every night after work, or showing off their healthy lunchbox rather than grabbing a local takeaway for lunch. Develop a bit of a working group, and most importantly, talk to your staff. Find out what it means to them to have a workplace that's healthy. Find out what they would like to see, and using that information, then take the next step to actually implement something. Sit down, work together, create a healthy policy. What does success of a health and wellbeing initiative look like to you? What would it take for people to be really happy in their workplace as far as health and wellbeing goes? Then, like all good plans, put an action plan down on paper and promote the plan. Get out there, get excited, get everyone motivated about some of the steps that you're taking to improve workplace health and wellbeing. It's really important to always then review this program or the plan that you've put in place. I generally recommend that people will review the program initially after 4 to 6 weeks. And that's an opportunity for you to really just tweak what's going on, identify some areas that you've had some really good wins, what people are really enjoying, and maybe other things that haven't really taken off as well as you would like. And then move forward, continue with the motivation and enthusiasm, be open to changing things around on the spot if you need to be, but continue to review sort of once a quarter, every 3 months or so will be fine. Now, you don't need to change the world or make it overcomplicated. There's actually some really, really easy things that you can do, even just to get started. Walking meetings has become a bit of a catchphrase. If you have any pesky CDMs from, especially AIA, get them to come in, get them to turn up with their sneakers and go for a walking meeting. If you need to, you can always take a pen and paper with you, or a phone, and put your notes in as you're walking and talking, but get out there and start walking. You can also do this with your clients if they're up for it, or staff as well. Most of our mid-year reviews are conducted walking around the local park we have near our office. Do a little bit of a detox on your kitchen. What does your kitchen look like? If the temptation's not there, it's a lot harder to indulge. So get rid of the biscuits, the lollies that we're all reaching for come 3 o'clock, and replace it with fresh fruit. There's heaps of companies out there that will deliver fresh fruit on a daily basis, if you like. We've probably heard the term sitting is the new smoking. So consider putting in a few standing desks. They're not as expensive as you might think, and the benefits of them are amazing. So consider putting in some standing desks for your staff. This is not always a popular one, but instead of the after work drinks on a Friday, maybe is there a fun activity that you can all get involved in, even if it means going for a walk together as a team before you come back to the office and have those after work drinks. Encourage your team meetings to be stand-up meetings. I promise you this, if you're conducting a stand-up meeting, it goes a lot quicker than a sit-down meeting, so everyone can return back to work quicker than normal. It doesn't take too much. You pretty much just stand up and have your meeting. As a team, I really like this idea. Sign up for a fun run or a walk. It doesn't need to be a marathon, but there's lots of fun charity walks or events that you can get involved in, and doing it as a team really helps motivate everyone and gives everyone something to work towards together. You might like to have a healthy lunchbox competition once a week, and without the risk of having too much lycra in the office, I know there can be such a thing. Instead of casual wear, encourage active wear. There's lots of studies out there now that tell us that people, surprisingly enough, are more likely to be active if they're actually wearing active wear. So embrace the lycra, I say. This is a really fun concept, and you can do this definitely as a team. I think it's nice to have a theme each month and create a healthful year and put it up on a calendar and remind people of this quite regularly. So it can be as simple as, for example, there in the month of May, encourage everyone to go to bed at a reasonable time. You might like to have a meat-free day once a week, a meat-free Monday even, where once a week everyone goes vegetarian. So there's lots of different ideas. The internet is full of them. It's so just a really easy way to bring health and well-being to people's minds when it comes to the workplace. Now, it's really important to understand that when implementing a health and wellbeing program into a workplace, the benefits, while significant, aren't always there straight away. It's often a slow burn. For example, you won't see sick leave halved in the first 3 months. So therefore, it's really important to create a program that's sustainable, that's real, and see it as an investment for long-term success. And these are some of the successes that you'll be able to see. Immediately, you'll see team morale increase. It does say up there in a few months, but I've seen this happen that day when people start talking about improving health and well-being, and the workplace shows an interest in how people are feeling. The morale and engagement just goes through the roof, which is really wonderful. You'll often see teams working better together as well, particularly is on the slide previously, as I said, if people are focused on a common goal outside of work, we'll see an increased team cohesion there. Within the first year or two, you'll see an increased performance and productivity at an individual level as well as a team level. You'll also see increased attraction and retention of workers, an improved corporate and recruitment image, which is fantastic if you're trying to create yourself as being a workplace of choice and trying to attract really talented workers as well, which I'm sure everyone out there wants to do. You'll see an increased individual health knowledge, so an awareness of your own health is absolutely vital when trying to improve your health and well-being. It's hard to know what direction you need to go in if you don't know where the starting point is anyway. And an increased job satisfaction. You know, we want people to turn up and be healthy and happy at work. It means that they get more work done. More longer term, within 3 to 5 years, you'll see a decrease in workplace injuries and associated expenses, particularly workers' compensation claims or people off for mental health issues, and that coincides with the decreased absenteeism and sick leave. You'll see a decreased incidence of attending work when sick, so back to the catchphrase of presenteeism, and also an increased return on training and development investment. So, you know, when it comes down to it, I think it's pretty hard to say that can't deny healthy, happy staff are pretty good for business. And if you're not investing in your workplace, are you really doing the right thing for the bottom dollar? Okay, hope everyone's still with me out there. Probably coming up with lots of awesome ideas on different things that you can do in the workplace. And I'd love to hear of any that anyone's already doing. Shoot them through, and Liam will let me know at the end of it. Be great to have a bit of a table going on what people are already doing out there in the workplace. So for the next step, let's zoom in a little bit closer now to our clients, and how can we help them value what you do even more than what they do now? To do this, obviously, it's really important to understand what's important to them, and the next few slides will help us do that. So these little snippets on what people define as a life well lived come from one of the biggest surveys of its kind. It's a fascinating survey that's been running for many, many years. It's called the US Trust Insights on Wealth. Now, what it tells us is to define a life well lived, it is essential that people feel not only secure financially, but also in their health and also in their family. It's important, as 99% of the people surveyed told us, that investing in good health is as important as investing to build wealth. And a statement that came from this survey said that nearly 8 in 10 identified at least one area of their lives in which they should be doing more or focusing a greater attention on. And that number one aspect came across as being health. And look, I'm sure it's no surprise, quite often the top 5, top 10 New Year's resolutions, number one is always wanting to exercise more, lose weight, and actually take a more active approach to your own health. Number two is obviously quit smoking. Number three is decreased alcohol consumption. Then we start to see things like spending more time with my family, investing in a hobby, or improving self-importance, and financial security come down the table as well. So these are things that people wake up on New Year's Day every year and say, this year is going to be better. This year, my financial security, my health, and my family will be better than what it was last year. So let's deep dive even further now, shall we, on what our clients within Australia have told us that they want. And these are advice clients, and this comes from the Advice Challenge paper from the BDOS Institute. Now, what it tells us is that our clients who are already receiving advice really value high quality communication. So what that means is, are you communicating with your client the way they want to be communicated with? How many of you ask the simple question, how would you like me to communicate with you? These days, it's not unheard of that people don't check their emails or pay enough attention to their emails as what they did possibly a few years ago. People might like to receive information through you via a text, or just a reminder that to check in on something via a text. We've actually got a few practices out there whose clients have told them that if it's really important that the client gets back to them, they should send them a Snapchat message. That's how they want to be communicated with. So asking that really important question, how would you like me to communicate with you? And then ensuring that you deliver on that is really, really essential. The next thing that they tell us is they want a targeted approach to service delivery as well. So basically not a one-size-fits-all. They really want to be able to sit with a financial advisor and get advice on something that's personal to them, that is tailored and targeted directly to what they need in their life. And we can only really do that if we really understand truly what it is that makes that client happy and what's important in their life. The third thing is a renewed focus on demonstrating value, and I understand this can be quite tricky after those initial meetings with your client. Once the ball gets rolling with them, how do you communicate? How do you continue to demonstrate value with your clients annually? How do you touch base with them? How many touch points do you have? And are those touch points actually demonstrating value and continuing to increase that client's perception of value of you and the service that you provide, to the point that they're excited about what you deliver to them and they're telling all their friends about it? Now, something else that came out of this paper was that 75% of clients highly value being able to lower their life insurance premiums by participating in a health and wellness program as part of a life insurance that is based on dynamic underwriting. Now, this is not a brand new thing. People are getting very used to having some sort of control over how much they pay for their premiums based on the decisions and choices they're making. I'm sure you've all seen the UE advert where it talks about, if I drive and park in a secure location, I'm likely to pay less for my car insurance than someone who is on the road all the time and parking in supermarket car parks and unsecured parking, etc. So people are getting very used to this dynamic underwriting and premium pricing control, which is really exciting. So with all this insight on our nation's state of health, the lifestyle choices that we're all making, how we define a life well lived, and considering some of the New Year's resolutions out there, and also an understanding of what our clients want, how now can we help you to help your clients? So a question asked by you all, I'm sure, and many businesses alike. But it's interesting, I think, to know that there's a new approach to financial planning, and financial planning has evolved over the years. Advice businesses seem to have gone from a financial needs approach to one based more on goals and values. Our starting point, really broadly speaking, obviously, was about identifying the financial need and then offering a solution. Next, we've seen the industry progress to a goals and value-based financial planning, whereby advisors would help their clients align their financial choices with their most important goals and their most deeply held values. So in its purest form, goals and values places the achievement of a client's life plans, their dreams and their personal values, actually before the strategic pursuit of wealth creation. Now, more recently, we're seeing an increase in practices, particularly in new businesses or those businesses who are highly experienced in goals and values-based financial planning, really supporting the full person, taking more of a holistic stance, so to speak. These businesses are connecting with the research which demonstrates over and over again the interconnectedness of the areas in our lives. So going back to that slide around health and family and financial and being secure in those aspects of your life rather than just one individual aspect. So knowing that, we have to ask ourselves, how invested is your client to achieving a financial outcome if other areas of their life are lacking or taking priority? What if there's an underlying issue that a client has which provides them or prevents them from engaging in your financial planning process? I'm sure many of you have sat down initially with a client and asked the client what's important to them, and they'll say to you, spending time with my family is really important, my health's really important, obviously financial security is really important, and they'll say all those things. Then fast forward a few years down the track and you speak with that same client, and unfortunately maybe their marriage is suffering, their relationship with their children possibly isn't where it could be, and maybe they're having some real health issues as well. Financially they're doing okay, but other areas of their life are lacking. Why does this happen? Why do we see this over and over again? I believe it's because our clients and the people we surround ourselves with tell us that these things are important, and inherently they do believe that, but without the right advice, without the right experts in their life, and without the right resources, it's really, really difficult to ensure that all areas of your life are functioning as well as you would like them to. And I see this time and time again. So how do we do this? How do we help our clients achieve all of these things? I know it seems really overwhelming. Where do you start? It doesn't mean all of a sudden you have to go out and become a personal trainer or a life coach or a marriage counsellor. Part of my job is I'm so lucky I get to go around Australia and meet with individual advisors and advice practices. And as part of my role, I help them embed a health and wellbeing aspect into their advice process. And without a doubt, every time I sit with them, they say to me, what do I need to improve my skill set to be able to do this? How much more time is it going to take? I've already talking about so much in those initial meetings, especially with my clients. How do I fit just one more thing in? The great thing is you don't really need to add any more time to your advice process. You definitely don't need to expand your skill set. You just need to surround yourself with the right people. There are so many experts out there that really are brilliant at what they do. And in fact, we're seeing many advice practices now stepping outside of the traditional referral partners that they've had in the past, still utilising mortgage brokers, accountants, etc. But also introducing new referral partners and referral partners that are coming from the healthcare industry. So we've got practices, one particularly in WA that is doing great work with a local chiropractor, physiotherapist, and another practice that works very, very closely with a psychologist, a life coach, counsellors. So bringing in those extra referral partners, broadening your community and broadening the resources that you have to be able to give to your clients to help them achieve more than just one aspect of their life. You also have some wonderful programs out there available to you that can take a lot of the pressure off you having to explain or coach someone through improving their health and well-being. One of those being the AIA Vitality program, which I'm so fortunate enough to be a part of. One of the best things I love about the Vitality program is that it provides everything your client needs to improve their health and well-being, and allows you just to be the hero because you're the one that's provided the insight to the program. The Vitality program meets someone where they're currently at. You don't need to be a marathon runner. You don't need to be the best foodie in the world. You don't need to be the most active person in the world. It meets someone wherever they're at and helps them just get that little bit better. Very, very simply, Vitality helps you to first off know your health. And as I said, every good journey starts with knowing where you're beginning. Without knowing some of those magic numbers around where you're sitting in your health, it's very, very hard to know what direction you need to go. The next thing is there are so many resources that are involved in the Vitality program that will help you improve your health and well-being. And the cool thing is along the way you'll get rewarded for making these really healthy choices. And obviously the 12.5% discount on eligible AIA insurance policies helps sweeten the deal as well. This program has been around for close to 20 years. There is over 1 million members worldwide. We're seeing new countries and new companies worldwide pick up the Vitality program and have wonderful success with it. So in your mind, you know that there's a lot of credibility behind this program and that it actually really works. It really, really works. Evidence of this that goes beyond the 12.5% discount or 7.5% discount on income protection is what our Vitality members did last year. So we're now seeing up there, I won't go through all of them, but now 2 in 3 policies with AIA have Vitality attached to them. We're already, in just the 4 years that we've been going, seen a 30% lower lapse rate for AIA Vitality policies. Last year, our members qualified for over 163,354 active benefit boost juice vouchers. That's a lot of juice that people are consuming out there. We walked enough steps to go around the world 282 times, which is really, really cool. And this one blows me away every time. We had over 3,083 discounted flights for all around the world for Qantas flights, which was really, really cool. One that always stands out to me is a gentleman who, I think he was going on a round the world trip, and he was flying premium economy, and he got $5,363, if my memory serves me correctly, back in cashbacks just for that one flight, which is pretty outstanding. We gave away a lot of shopping reward vouchers, and we had a lot of health and wellbeing assessments completed, which is what I'm really excited about. A lot of people out there knowing all about their health. So again, where do we start when we're talking about implementing health and wellbeing into our advice process? Like I said, there's no need to become a PT or a life coach or anything like that, and there's really no need to add a lot more time onto what you're already doing. So this is an example of an advice process that I often will work with a client to do, or an advisor to do, and you might find that it looks very similar to what you're already doing. It's simply expanding on a couple of the aspects of those meetings that you're having with your clients already. So I'm sure many of you are already in that first meeting doing a very detailed value and goals-based questioning. This is your fact-find meeting. Really understanding the why behind people's goals is fundamental here. And being able to effectively embed a health and well-being aspect into your advice process can come down to as simple as asking a couple of extra questions around uncovering someone's emotional why and need of what they want to be able to live a life well lived. These questions might be as simple as, if money wasn't an issue, what would you be doing right now? Would you like help with increase your exercise or improve your health, your eating habits? If there was a program out there to help improve your health and well-being, would that be something you'd be interested in? So just some really simple questions, 2 or 3 maximum is usually all it takes. Then the next meeting is the gap analysis meeting. This meeting outlines the analysis you've done for the client based on current versus optimal position for the client. And here you'll identify the client's current gaps. In this meeting, it's a really great opportunity to link the fact that they are there and they have an emotional why, and they've expressed this emotional why to you in that first meeting. It's here that you are able to link something like the Vitality program or a referral partner to uncover the need that that person has and how you're planning on helping them achieve that need. And that's really important, because there's no product talk here. It's simply letting the client know that you've identified, you've listened to them, and you understand what is important to them. You understand that there's a gap there, and you've done a lot of work and research to help that client fill that gap. The level of the perception of value that that client has for you already starts to go through the roof. I'm sure a lot of you are doing that already. The next meeting is obviously the SOA implementation meeting. I'm sure I don't need to go into detail around that. You all know that all too well, I'm sure. The final meeting, though, the post-implementation meeting, I'm aware that not every advice practice is doing this at the moment, but I do find that it works extremely well. It doesn't need to be a long meeting. It's just that final touch point. If you like, it's tying a ribbon around everything that you've done for the client and presenting it to them like that. It's at this final meeting that I would recommend that you sit down with the client and put some things on paper about what they expect and what you expect of them to be able to achieve by the end of the year. Get them to sign off on these goals. Make these goals realistic. They can be as simple as reading a few books that they've always wanted to read, or going on a holiday, or entering their first fun run. It could be anything. But get those goals down on paper and get the client to sign off on it. It's really up to the client to keep themselves accountable. It's a great opportunity for you to say, look, I've identified your goals. I've provided lots of resources and solutions to help you achieve those goals. I will do everything I can to help you achieve those goals, but it's up to you to take the first step and keep going with it. Ask the client to bring that piece of paper, that the goals that they've written down back into their next meeting with you, and it just helps keep them on track and creates extra touch points for you. It creates another level of understanding of your client and further deepens that value, that perception of value that is so important. So I'll finish off now. There's a lot of information that I've given you, and I'm sure your head's spinning a little bit. So by way of summary, I'd love to end this with a quote. And this came from a survey respondent from the study from the US Trusts and Sites paper. A life well lived enables one to control that which is controllable and be in better shape to cope with other health problems that can arise. I really think this quote is true. It's true for me. I'm sure it's true for you. It's true for your business and for your clients. So please consider healthy being the new wealthy. Take the time to invest in your own health and well-being, your staff's health and well-being, and take the time to talk about your clients' health and well-being as well. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, Sasha. Really good presentation there. I hope all the listeners got some key takeaways which they can implement in their offices for some more active lifestyles. I really like the walking meetings. I think that's something that would be really cool for Netwealth. Also, as a AIA Vitality member myself, I can definitely vouch for the program. There's some awesome discounts on movies and half-price gym memberships. Although please don't try and picture me as a walking six-pack or muscles. I've got a long way to go. We'll jump to some questions now. Just again, another reminder that if you have any for Sasha, please do ask them in the questions panel. It's not too late, and we'll try and cover as many as we can, and she's more than happy to answer. So I guess just starting off, Sasha, have you got any examples of workplaces or clients or individual workers themselves who have implemented some sort of activity or program or initiative, and how's it helped them or turned them around?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, and almost too many to comment on, really. It's really exciting to see how quickly people will pick up and run with a health and wellbeing initiative, and how many people actually get behind it. The active wear comes from AIA, actually, the active wear instead of casual wear. So I can vouch for the excess lycra walking around the office. But and we've seen other practices pick that up as well, and it's amazing that people are more likely to go out for a walk in their lunch break if they're wearing active wear. And we know that simply by walking for 30 minutes halfway through the day, getting out there, getting some vitamin D, it actually makes you 3 times more productive in the afternoon. So you pick up 3 times as much time and energy in the afternoon just for going out for a walk, which is really great. We've seen other practices turn their Friday afternoon team meetings into walking meetings. One particularly in Perth that fortunate enough to be located right near the Swan River there. So they actually go for a pretty decent walk around, I don't think the whole way, but quite a fair way around the Swan River, and they're able to talk very openly in those meetings as well, which is the feedback that I've got. A lot of the questions and ideas that come out of these walking meetings tend to be a lot more than if people are sitting around in a stuffy office and just looking at each other or looking at their notebooks or, heaven forbid, looking at their phones or iPads and catching up on the sneaky email here and there. The fruit delivery is one there's so many companies that are doing that, and we've seen businesses take it to the next level where people are actually bringing in produce from home. So it's up to one person once a week to bring in a healthy morning tea, which is really nice, and again builds on that team environment as well. I think the absolute key takeout with putting a health and wellbeing initiative into place in a workplace is, as I said, it can be really simple. It doesn't need to take up too much time. It definitely doesn't need to cost any money. It's just about having the conversation with people that there is an awareness of people's health and wellbeing and how important it is. And like I say to many workplace owners, fake it until you make it. You don't have to actually really care about someone's health and wellbeing, but just talking about it and letting people know that it is important that people take care of themselves is often enough to just get the ball started.
Absolutely, good one. We've got a question here from Lee. He's asked if there's any age limits to implement the Vitality program.
No, none at all. We actually had a really cool story about a Vitality member. I hope I get his age right. I think he's 86, and he's hit platinum 2 years in a row. So no, as far as upper age limit, no, there's not. As far as lower age limit, it's just whatever age you're able to take out an insurance policy, which I believe is 18.
That's great. I hope that answers your question, Lee. I've got another question here. I know it's a bit of a trend you touched on before with stand-up desks.
Yeah.
Happening around offices. It's here at Netwealth as well. I'm still glued to my chair though. Why would you recommend a stand-up desk for the listeners? What are the benefits associated with that?
There are so many benefits to a stand-up desk, and when we think about stand-up desks, I really don't want people to think of them as being something that is you walk into work and you spend the whole day at work standing up behind a desk. It's not that. What we would really encourage is for a desk that can move up and down. Like I said, they're not too expensive. The benefits from there are huge. It means that people are more active. You actually, interestingly enough, burn more calories standing up than you do sitting down. It does encourage people to move a little bit more. It's very, very good for your core, which is essential to any type of movement that we do. If you find yourself getting fidgety, after sitting for too long, it's because your core is unable to engage as well as it should do. So standing up is really important there. Obviously, wearing the right shoes is important. Don't be pulling a Victoria Beckham and standing up in stilettos. I wouldn't recommend that for anyone. And we know that just by if you get someone to take a photo of yourself or take a photo of your colleague when probably get their permission first. It's probably important. But get someone to take a photo of you when you're not aware of it, and have a look at your posture when you sit behind a desk. Even those of us who are really aware of how we should be sitting, quite often after time don't tend to sit that way. And as I'm speaking, I'm adjusting my posture now. But a chiropractor who I work quite closely with tells me that so many neck and back problems come from sitting behind a desk, and simply by pushing your head forward 1 inch can add an extra 3 to 5 kilos onto your neck. So it's kind of hard. If you imagine sort of if you're looking down at your phone, or if you're leaning forward to read something on your screen, every time you move your head forward past your shoulders, you're adding a lot more weight onto your neck. And then I'm sure everyone that's ever spent time behind a desk knows how sore neck and shoulders and back can get. So that's the reason.
Absolutely. Sounds like I should be requesting one. Another question that's come through has asked, does the client need to be an AIA to sign up for the AIA Vitality program? Do they need to be an AIA insurance client?
Yes, they do. But there are lots of different policies that are available to the client, and your CDM will be able to tell you the insides and outs of all of those. But I work with advisors that are 100% behind Vitality, love everything there is about the program, and love what it does for their clients. And if for one instance or another an AIA policy isn't the best choice for that client, or the right choice for that client, there's an accidental death policy that they can get out. I think the minimum is $300 premium for the client, and they can attach Vitality to that. Also, we have health coming out. Well, it's out now as well. So, and health insurance will have Vitality already embedded into that policy as well. So they can actually be a Vitality member just simply by having health insurance with AIA. So, but again, your CDMs are the experts on those. So reach out to them.
You also mentioned there how to sort of, I guess, promote health initiatives and sort of programs to advise clients. What's the feedback been from advisors who have done that to their clients?
Oh my gosh, how much time have we got? Oh gosh, I could talk about yeah, okay. We could talk about this. I could talk about this all day. Some of the stories that have come through have been almost on the verge of unbelievable. We've heard stories of marriages being saved. A lady, just quickly, a client of advisor of ours came in to see her because she was on the verge of a marriage breakdown and wanted to get her finances in line before the separation actually took place. She was very overweight. She had a massive loadings across all of her policies, had lots of health issues as well. As a side, the advisor signed her up for the Vitality program to give her something to focus on. Said, it's time you start focusing on yourself and improving your own health and well-being, and just take some of the pressure off all the negativity that's going on in your life. 6 months later, the lady was back in. She'd lost a whole heap of weight. I think she was saving up for a trip because of her Vitality status. Her marriage was better than it had ever been because she was coming home at night, and after dinner, instead of her and her husband going off to separate rooms to do their own thing, she started going for a walk, and he felt guilty, so started to join her. And then the kids started to join them as well. So it's become a nightly routine for the whole family to go for a walk every night after dinner. So the whole family's lost a little bit of weight, and they're connecting like they haven't done in years. So that's really amazing. We're hearing other stories of, the old adage, I used to be fit and healthy, and then 20 years pass and I don't do any of the sport that I used to. People getting back into sports and rediscovering the love of movement. That's probably the overwhelming thing that comes through. And then, as I said a few times, the perception of value that the client then has for their advisor, because the client has gone in expecting to speak about one aspect of their life and ended up having many more aspects of their life being fulfilled and really achieving above and beyond what they thought was possible.
That's fantastic. It's so simple.
It is. It's really
results.
Simple.
I guess maybe the final question here, as I know it's I'm guilty of this from time to time, but we all know how important sleep is for health.
Yes, yep.
And I think a lot of people, the last thing they do before they close their eyes is look at their screen and have their phone and have that bright light flashing back at them.
Yep.
Is that Is that something we should be concerned about?
I try not to use the word concern too much, because concern in itself can be a bit of an issue. But so the recommendation is that you avoid screen time for an hour before you go to bed, and you avoid any screen time that involves communication. So for all the social geeks out there, your Facebooking, your Instagramming, emails, all of those, anything that involves a form of communication, you should avoid that 2 hours before you go to bed, and that will just set you up to have the best night's sleep possible. It's really tricky, I know, particularly when people are using their phones as alarm clocks in their bedrooms. The best advice I can give is invest back in an old-fashioned alarm clock and put the phones in another room if you're unable not to look at your phone. But start to create a bit of a nighttime routine. I think that's really key. We all have our morning routines. We get up, we have dinner, we have breakfast, we might do some exercise, brush our teeth, get the kids ready for school, all of that. Start establishing a nighttime routine and then extend it a little bit. So get yourself up off the couch, maybe go around and lock all the doors, pour yourself a glass of water, put the cat out or bring the cat in, whatever you do. Start to build a little bit of a routine before you go to bed, and before you know it, it would have been a long time before you've looked at your phone. Try not to take your phone into the bedroom. That's what I can say. There's better things to do in the bedroom.
All right, great. Well, I think we'll leave it there.
Okay.
Again, thank you so much for joining us today, Sasha. It's been a really great presentation. Again, hope the listeners got something out of it. Listeners, thank you for joining us. We hope we'll see you again at our next month's webinar.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling like a salad for lunch. Thank you very much.